Look, here's the thing about your morning breakfast. You're standing in the grocery store aisle looking at a carton of white eggs for $3 and a carton of brown eggs for $6. Naturally, you think the brown ones must be better for you, right? They look more rustic, more farm fresh, and they're certainly more expensive. But I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. When it comes to the actual nutrition inside that shell, there's absolutely zero difference between a brown egg and a white egg. I know it sounds crazy because we've been conditioned to think brown equals healthier, like wheat bread versus white bread. But in the bird world, it literally just comes down to the breed of the chicken. White feathered chickens with white earlobes lay white eggs, and red feathered chickens with red earlobes lay brown eggs. That's it. The reason the brown ones cost more isn't because they're superfoods. It's simply because those specific chickens are bigger and they eat more feed. You're basically paying a taller chicken tax at the checkout line. So if the color doesn't matter, what should you actually be looking for? This is where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit confusing if you aren't careful with the labels. You see terms like cage-free or free range, and you imagine chickens frolicking in a meadow, but the reality is often much grittier. Cage-free usually just means they aren't in a tiny wire box, but they might still be crammed into a massive dark barn with thousands of other birds, never seeing a lick of sunshine. Free range sounds better, but legally it often just means the birds have access to the outdoors, even if that access is just a tiny door to a concrete porch they never actually use. If you really want the gold standard for your health, you need to look for pasture-raised. These are the birds that are actually out there in the sun, scratching in the dirt and eating what chickens are supposed to eat. And please make sure you don't confuse pasture-raised with pasteurized. Pasteurized eggs have been heated to kill bacteria, which is fine for safety in certain recipes, but that heat can also take a toll on the delicate nutrients we're trying to get. You've probably also noticed the vegetarian fed label on a lot of cartons lately. It sounds healthy, right? We like vegetables, so we think the chickens should too. But here's the funny thing, most people don't realize chickens are not vegetarians, they're omnivores. If you leave a chicken in a pasture, it's going to hunt down bugs, worms, and grasshoppers. When a company brags about vegetarian fed hens, what they're really telling you is that they're feeding the birds a steady diet of corn and soy, unless it specifically says organic. That corn and soy is almost certainly GMO. It's a marketing trick that plays on our human health trends, but it actually denies the chicken its natural diet. This is why I always tell people to look for both organic and pasture-raised. When you combine those two, you're getting an egg from a bird that ate its natural diet without a cocktail of synthetic pesticides. Now, if you want a real visual test of how healthy your egg is, just crack it open. We've all seen those pale, sad, watery yellow yolks, right? Compare that to a deep, vibrant, almost sunset orange yolk. That color isn't just for show. That deep orange is a signal that the egg is packed with carotenoids and phytonutrients. We're talking about things like lutein and zeaxanthin. These are absolutely crucial for your eye health, specifically for protecting against macular degeneration and cataracts as you get older. They're also fantastic for your brain health. If you crack an egg and the yolk breaks immediately, or if it's already broken inside the shell, that's usually just a sign that the egg is getting a bit old. It's not necessarily bad, but it's lost that structural integrity that comes with freshness. The real magic, though, is in the nutrients hidden in that yolk. Some people still skip the yolk because they're afraid of the fat, but that's where almost all the good stuff lives. Yolks are loaded with choline. If you haven't heard of choline, you need to start paying attention to it. It's a powerhouse for your liver, helping to prevent fatty liver disease, and it's a building block for neurotransmitters in your brain. It helps you think clearly and keeps your memory sharp. Then you've got selenium, which is a major player in your body's detoxification process, and biotin, which is why people who eat plenty of eggs often have such strong hair and nails. And we can't forget the fat-soluble vitamins. Eggs are one of the few natural food sources of vitamin D, which most of us are deficient in, especially during the winter. You're also getting vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin K2. That K2 is vital because it acts like a traffic cop for calcium, making sure it goes into your bones and teeth where it belongs, rather than getting stuck in your arteries or joints and causing stiffness. Toss in some B12, phosphorus, and those heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. And you've got a nearly perfect food. Wait, I know what some of you are thinking, but what about the cholesterol? I get it. We've been told for decades that eggs will clog our arteries. But the science has moved on, even if the old advice is still lingering around. For the vast majority of people, dietary cholesterol, the stuff you eat, doesn't have a significant impact on the cholesterol levels in your blood. Your liver actually produces most of your body's cholesterol, and if you eat more, your liver just produces less to keep things in balance. I personally eat about 4 eggs every single day, and I love them. They're one of the most nutrient-dense things you can put in your body. I actually have a funny story about this. Years ago, I was giving a series of health seminars for a big corporation, Exxon actually. I did the first few sessions and they seemed to be going great. People were engaged and asking questions. But then suddenly they stopped calling me back. I was confused, so I called them up and asked if I'd done something wrong. The lady on the phone said, well, we can't have you back because you're telling people to eat 45 eggs a day. I had to laugh and explain that. I said 4 to 5 eggs a day, not 45. I guess I was talking a little too fast that morning. Once we cleared that up, they invited me back to finish the series. Just goes to show, even the experts can be misunderstood when it comes to the power of the humble egg. At the end of the day, the best thing you can do isn't just looking at the color of the shell or the fancy labels in the supermarket. If you really want the best quality, try to find a local farmer or a farmer's market. When you buy from someone local, you can often ask them exactly what the chickens are eating. A lot of these smaller farms use things like cloves, herbs, and garlic instead of harsh insecticides to keep their birds healthy. Not only is that better for the environment, but it actually makes the eggs taste noticeably better. You'll notice the shell is thicker and the flavor is richer. It's a completely different experience than the mass-produced eggs you find in the big box stores. Just remember that the official egg rating system, the grade A or grade AA stamps, doesn't have anything to do with how much nutrition is inside. That's strictly about aesthetics. It tells you the shell is clean, the size is consistent, and there aren't any weird blemishes. It's basically a beauty pageant for eggs. You can pretty much ignore those grades if you're focusing on your health. Focus on the life the chicken lived instead. Was it out in the sun? Was it eating bugs and grass? That's what determines the quality of the fuel you're putting into your own body. Look, navigating the grocery store can feel like a minefield of marketing lies, but once you know what to look for, it gets a lot easier. If you're ever in doubt, just remember pasture-raised and organic is the winning combo. And don't let the color of the shell fool your wallet. It's what's on the inside that counts. Of course, I'm just a friend sharing what I've learned through research. So if you have specific health concerns or a history of heart issues, it's always a smart move to consult your doctor before making big changes to your diet. This isn't formal medical advice, just some food for thought to help you make better choices. If this changed how you think about your morning omelet, hit subscribe because I break down health science just like this every single week. I'm all about real research, no BS, and giving you the useful stuff you can actually use to feel better today. Thanks for hanging out with me and taking an interest in what you're putting on your plate. Would you like me to create a similar script for another common grocery store myth?